All right, great. Why are we talking about Dynamics 365 Business Central today? The real benefit is the whole 365 platform from Microsoft because there are a lot of good packages out there. A lot of systems can do general ledger, pay bills, things like that, reporting. The real value is the entire suite or platform that Microsoft offers that really no other company or publisher in the world can offer. So if you combine the productivity apps like Word and Excel and the email capabilities with Outlook and Exchange, marry that with the financial application that's going to be Dynamics 365 Business Central that we're talking about today. And then layer on top of that all these industry tools that they provide, such as Power Platform, which is Power BI for reporting, and Power Automate as a workflow engine. They have Power Apps, which is a way to create quick little plugins that fill gaps, things like that. It's really this whole environment that's really a huge benefit to our clients. And another advantage to Business Central, as opposed to the legacy Dynamics product that you're on today, is that it's a cloud-based product. So it's a true subscription model. It's accessed through a browser. There's no more servers and workstations, all that kind of stuff. You obviously need a workstation or a browser to run it, but it can be run on different platforms like tablets and phones, and from anywhere that you can get an internet connection. Another key difference is that because it is a cloud solution, Microsoft pushes the updates out to us or to you as well. In the past, you were paying annual, or right now you're paying annual maintenance fees for Dynamics, but you only get the value of that when we do an upgrade. And upgrades were often, kind of costly and time consuming and a disruption to your business. People would not do regular updates. We would do them every other year, every couple of years, things like that. Really, you're paying for something and not getting the value of the new features and improvements and things they're putting in the software. And Microsoft sees Dynamics 365 as a huge growth area for them. They are investing heavily in it. And then you get the advantage of that investment regularly. They put out monthly updates, and there are two major releases a year, typically in April and October. The Business Central product itself is bundled, basically. What we're talking about today is Dynamics 365 Business Central Essentials, which is their base bundle, which includes all of the core capabilities that are needed for financial management as far as accounts receivable, payables, bank rec, fixed assets. I know it doesn't apply here, but inventory and sales order processing, all those kinds of things are included. They have a premium version, which includes manufacturing and some higher end distribution things. But I would say most of our clients fall into the Essentials package. You are getting all this value with the core Essentials package. Another benefit is TM Group has built integration to PCE for Dynamics 365. I know most of our CMHs are using PCE for EMR and provider management. We've created a custom integration for Business Central. There's no files to handle or folders to share. Provider purchase invoices are created automatically within BC. And then once the payments are processed, the payment notification is sent back to PCE. You have that full end-to-end integration. So I just want to touch on our implementation methodology. If we were to go forward with a transition project, this is a completely different accounting system. So it's not just an update or an upgrade from the Dynamics package. This is implementing a new system. And you'll see when Brian does the demo, what it looks like, and it is a completely different product. We start every project with a project planning and design session, which we call an IPS, or implementation planning study. And that is where we sit down with your team for a couple half days or maybe a full day and walk through fairly detailed requirements matrix and document what's needed, what's in scope, what's out of scope, who's going to do what kind of reports do we need, things like that. And from that planning study, we put together a statement of work. That statement of work will have a more detailed timeline. We will review the budget that we had in the initial proposal, make sure we're still on track there and nothing new came up or potentially something that could be taken off. We reconcile to the original proposal. and provide that statement of work to you to review and agree that, yep, this is what we want to do. This is how it's going to be rolled out. And then we sign off on it. And that becomes our roadmap for the project. We don't order or set up anything until the statement of work has been signed, because things, like I said, could change in between what was discussed through the sales process. And then when we really get into the weeds and of your needs, some things might change a little bit. Once we agree on the final product and the statement of work signed, then we start setting things up, and we will create a test company, and we will provide templates for master files like vendors and chart of accounts and things like that, and help you get that information out of your existing system and into Business Central, into a test environment, which will set up and do testing and training in the test environment while making those same settings in the production company. There will be a phase we call user acceptance testing, where we will walk through sample transactions, a sample set of your invoices that you're doing today. How are we going to put those into the new system? And that'll be part of the training and testing, and making sure that we get the outputs that we need, making sure our reports balance to what they should, things like that. Once we get through the user acceptance testing phase, then we schedule our go live date is still reasonable and ready to go, and then we prepare for that. And we're there after you go live. I know it's kind of silly, it seems like to me, but we do get questions fairly often that, you're going to be here right after we go live. It's not like we do all the training, cut it over, and then you're kind of off on your own. We definitely budget time for post go live support and training and things like that. Once we get through the process, and I should mention, we use a tool called Smartsheet, which is a shareable Excel type document that's web-based that we will share with you. And we use Smartsheet to manage the project. We'll have an engagement manager that's keeping everybody on track and moving in the same direction. And they will be managing the Smartsheet, which will have our timeline, task lists, any open issues that come up, parking lot. Maybe there's some things that come up that you'd like to do later, but I don't want it to impact where we're at in the project. And we will go through go live. Once we get live and the issues have pretty much dwindled down, or there are no more issues, then we schedule a closing meeting, call it, or a transition to support. We want our clients to be as self-sufficient as possible. Once we get through all the things having to do primarily with the implementation, and then become more support type issues, then we kind of move away from the active project and start using our support desk. Whereas during the active project, you will have a lead consultant and a secondary consultant and the engagement manager and people that will be working primarily with for the project. I will turn it over to Brian to show us what the product looks like.
All right. Can you guys see my screen? I have Office 365 on there as if I logged into that. And the reason I start here is I like to demonstrate, because as Christopher mentioned, Business Central is built on the platform of Dynamics 365. It's literally just another application, similar to the applications that we already know and love, like Outlook, Word, and Excel, all the other applications. You'll notice that Business Central is just another application that sits on that platform. Once you install Office 365 or D365 and you get a license assigned for Business Central, you would then have access to Business Central right from that platform. And as we go through the demonstration today, we'll show some tight integrations that Microsoft has incorporated in Business Central with those other Office tools like Excel and Word, Outlook, even Teams, and we'll show some of that as we go through. Right from here, I can launch Business Central, and when I do that, it basically opens it up in a separate tab. Now I can put just a quick bookmark on my desktop to launch Business Central and just jump right into it, as you would see here. A couple different options of navigating into the application from Dynamics 365. Once I get logged in, you'll notice I've got my company name up here. This is my demo environment for CMHs. So I just have CMH-CMH as the company name, but your company name would show up in that upper left corner and just kind of indicating what environment you're in. And we use that when we create sandbox environments. We have the ability to name those respectively. I can have my sandbox environment say sandbox-CMH or whatever I want to call it, something to definitely differentiate it from our production or live company. That's one way that we can identify that. We can identify what environment I'm in by this icon right here. Notice it says production. I can navigate right from here. If I click on this environment button, I can actually navigate to my sandboxes down here. These are different sandboxes that I have. Typically, there's one or two sandboxes that our customers typically use, and navigating between the sandbox is very simple. You don't have to log out, log back in, or find another link, anything like that. It's very straightforward. You simply go to the environment selector here, and then just select which environment you want to switch to. Very straightforward. And we have these little badges here that help differentiate, because this persists all the time. This doesn't get covered up by any other screens as I'm navigating through the environment. This little icon here, it says Vision in here because I was using this for one of my demos for Vision. But you can see here we can put different coloring and different text within inside that particular badge, which is just another visual cue to indicate which environment I'm currently working in. That's some different ways to navigate between a production environment and a sandbox environment. And just for those that aren't familiar with sandboxes, that's where you can kind of go play, create entries, test out some different things in the system without harming or endangering our live financial application. We use those quite frequently, especially during implementation, but even after implementation, we leave those sandboxes there for the users to do some testing and playing around. As you can see, I'll kind of walk through the layout of Business Central. You can see here I've got my menu system, and this is really driven by the role that I am logged in as. I'm logged in as a business manager. I've got a pretty inclusive or a lot of different stuff being presented to me, but that's what drives the menu system based on my role. And as a user, I actually have an ability to configure or modify my menu system by using something called personalization mode. So if there's some areas in here that I don't necessarily need, as a user, I have the ability to actually hide things off my screen. I don't have much clutter if things are more than what I need. From the finance area, I can navigate to the finance activities like the general journals and chart of accounts, fixed assets, and my financial reports. Cash management, this is where I navigate to my bank account information and my payment journals. When we do a check run, we're going to do payment journals, those types of cash activities. And then we're going to jump into purchasing. This is where I work with my vendors and purchase invoices, those documents that, come over from PCE as an example. That's where I really spend my time with purchase invoices and any credit information that we're going to be doing, credit memos and those types of things. So those are the areas that we're going to focus on today. We'll go through those a little bit in detail. And then as I scroll over to the right here, you'll notice I have this gear. And this is called My Settings, or I can actually get to My Settings from here. So when I go to My Settings, there's a few things that I can identify here. As I mentioned, I'm logged in as a business manager. That role gives me visibility to different things in the menu system. It's how Business Central is really presented to me. Now, below that is a layer of security. I can have a security level of permissions that allow me to do different things in the system or restrict me from doing those things. It's really a two-layered approach. One, the role for presentation visually, and then underneath that, we have a layer of security that allows or restricts access to different things and functions in the system. And then we can see the company that we're logged into. Here is the work date. This is typically defaults to today, but if I'm booking some transactions, maybe we went over a month end, today's 12/1, maybe I need to enter some November invoices, and I don't want to have to keep changing that date back to November, and it just helps me not forget. I could actually change this date to 11/30, and all of my new documents that I create would be stamped with that as a starting date versus the 12/1 that might be in there for today. Like if I type a T for today, now everything that I create is going to be coded with a date of 12/1. Naturally, I can override that, but it just might save me some keystrokes as we're going through. That's how we can manage the work date in our system. And then as we're going through, you can see we've got all these different tiles and some other information being presented to me. What Business Central does and what Microsoft has kind of built into this application, they're providing you information based on the transactions that are actually going into the system. They're kind of mining that data and presenting information back to you that you can actually act on versus just, going in. Now I got to run these reports to get to this information. You can see here we've got for our purchase orders. I've got ongoing purchase orders. More relevant would be ongoing purchase invoices. These are invoices that are in the system that have not yet been posted. They aren't reflected on our vendor ledger entries. They are not available to pay yet. I might want to look at this, and we have the ability to actually set color thresholds. Maybe if this gets over 50, I want it to turn red. I don't think I have any red tiles on my desktop, but that's what this whole tile would turn red if it was over a certain threshold. You can see it has a tan threshold. This one's green. This is kind of tan. But when it gets to red, the entire tile will turn red as a caution. But I can drill into this and actually see what makes up those 24 invoices that are staged up but not yet posted in our system. These active tiles are always presenting information to me that I can act on, drill into, and take care of from that respect. And we have other tile sections down here for approvals, and I'll go through an example of an approval as we go through today. Whether I've submitted something that hasn't been acted on yet, or if there's something for me to approve, that would show in this tile here. And then we have other tiles that may or may not be relevant. Yeah, Shopify, stuff like that. But we do have some widgets to be presented on the dashboard. This is my favorite accounts. Maybe I'm in charge of a budget for a couple specific office supplies expense account, and I want to make sure that I have that in front of me. Here's the account. I can drill into it right from here. It's just a link back to that account, and I can actually look at the balance and the activity going on with that account. We've got some other business performance. This is based on customers, but we can set up information based on vendors. I've got a trial balance widget here that would report your typical trial balance. I'm not sure what dates are set in that. And then we have the ability to create Power BI reports, Power BI being another application that's part of the D365 suite that we can take advantage of. I've created a report and I shared it with myself. And so that is present right in my dashboard on my home screen here, which is kind of cool. And I can interact with this report here. I can change the slide. It will give different information. If I want to expand that out to actually see the report, because it's super small, I can do that and actually see the report and launch that right from my home page here. When I expand that, hey, we can actually see it. This is just my entire chart of accounts by name, not by GL number, which is a little different way to do it, but thought it looked a little cool. When I click on this, it will reflect the information over here. Once I click on an amount, 2,500 over here shows the invoice numbers that are associated with that. I got these different slides here that allow me to do date range. If I want to narrow that down to a specific date range, now only that data that falls within that date range is shown to me. Power BI, pretty useful reporting tool. And again, we can share reports right in our home screen dashboard with that. That's pretty cool. All right. Let's get into the meat of our application here. I want to start with a chart of accounts, because this is depending on what system you've come from. If you've come from Great Plains or Dynamics SL or several other applications, your chart of accounts might be a little different than what we're going to see here today. I'm going to show you our chart of accounts, and we'll walk through a little bit of the description of what we're seeing here. You'll notice the chart of accounts in Business Central is really based on the natural account number. You'll see here I've got my savings account. Down below we've got expenses, but it's just that natural account number. We are not creating, like if you're coming from GP, you may have a full string that has segmentation to it. Maybe we're tracking fund, cost center, grants, or whatever, or departments. And then within that string, there's the natural account number. Well, with that, anytime you add a new cost center or department, you have to account for all those possible combinations that cost center or department might be needing in the chart of accounts, which a lot of times you have to add 50 or more accounts, and there's a whole process to that. With Business Central, we use what we call dimensions. And the dimensions are what we can tag on the transaction, like a department or a cost center or a grant. And we'll talk about some of those today. But that's how we really differentiate or describe that transaction. And we can use those dimensions across the board. They're very beneficial when it comes to reporting, because now I can just take one simple dimension value and pull up any transaction that has that value in it. And we'll go through some of that today as well. If I look at my chart of accounts, again, very lean. I think I've got maybe 100 accounts in here. We've had customers from Great Plains that have come over, or GP, that have had 1,500 accounts in their list, and we've brought them to like a couple hundred just because of the way Business Central uses the natural account number and dimension values. So if we look at our account, we can do some filtering here, and you'll notice on our chart of accounts, we have some header accounts and some beginning total accounts. It almost looks like a financial statement. You can see I've got my balance sheet up here. I've got assets and then total assets down here. And what's nice about this, I can add a filter or filter down to those specific accounts, which are just heading accounts and totaling accounts, and kind of leave behind all the actual posting accounts and get a summary of my balance sheet. Right here, I just have a filter that says, show me the account type where it's heading everything but the posting account. Notice right here, I've got my balance sheet summary. I can see that everything's in balance just by using my chart of accounts. The chart of accounts really becomes a reporting tool, or our first analysis tool that we can use right in Business Central. I'll go to I've got another one for income statement summary, and you can see it shows the income statement. There's my net income, all that information just summarized right here for us to get that initial kind of cursory review of what we're looking at. And then I can do several other filters. Maybe I've got a group of expense accounts that I want to start looking at. I can go to just my expense accounts by changing the filter. And what's nice is I can create any filter I want. I'll go back to that list real quick, and I can save those and name them. If I made a different filter, I could save it, give it a new name, and then it always becomes available in my list. And then anytime I pull up that chart of accounts, I can navigate between my saved filters just by clicking on that. So it gives me a lot of ability to do some filtering and some analysis of our data here. Another nice feature in Business Central is the ability to search for things by name. I don't have to know all my chart of account numbers. I can simply type office supplies or office anything, or I could type supplies. It would pull up and search for the same exact information here. That's another nice feature with that. So let's take a look at the dimensions. As I mentioned, we have our natural account number in the chart of accounts. Let's take a look at our dimensions, and we will talk through how we can use those as we're going through. In my dimension list, the ones that we're going to kind of focus on today are like department, grant. We could have fund source, anything that you want in here. I'll just pull up the department dimension here a moment, and then let's look at the values. Under my department dimension, I have a lot of different departments in here with my demo data, but what's nice about this is it's a list. Like I mentioned, if we needed to add a new department, it's as simple as just coming in here and saying new department. And now I can start posting transactions to it. It's that simple. It makes this a very scalable solution for these dimension values and for a growing organization, really. This gives me the ability to do that. Whenever I'm in a transaction and I need to populate a department, these are the values that are going to end up in that drop down for us. And we'll show you that here in a moment. There's our dimensions for department. I'm going to say, sure. Oh, I've already got that one. That's why. We'll go back. Yes, I do want to discard that change. There we are. Like I mentioned, we have department. I've got some grants out here. When we do new grants, I can add a new grant. Those are always revolving, right? I've got a few here that I'm working with, but if we get a new grant, I just add that value here and I can start tagging transactions to it from there. Those are our dimensions. And we'll go ahead and start talking about how those play a role in my information as I'm looking through it. We'll go back to that office supplies account and I'll show you how we can kind of look at this. This is the chart of accounts right back here. I can drill into this information. I can open up the actual GL account card. Here's my account card. If I want to look at the balances, I can actually look at the balance by dimension. There's a nice way to kind of look at this. Here's by department. And then I got my GL account in there and all of my different, a very wide range of dates. And I can simply say, show matrix. I want to see this matrix for my office supplies. We can see the breakdown by department just by doing that quick little matrix. And if I want to drill in, maybe occupancy shouldn't have any transactions in it. I can drill into it, go right to the transaction and get back to the point of entry. I can see what exactly was created here just by drilling into this transaction. I can see it was actually just booked as a journal entry. And what was the other side of it? Looks like it was a reclass. They hit a couple, the same grant, but looks like it got moved between a department. There was and a GL account actually. So there was a journal entry there. From that transaction or from that analysis view, I can actually look and drill into those transactions, which is very powerful. Kind of creates a pivot table look. And actually Business Central has created another feature that's pretty slick as well. We're going to take a look at here shortly. One other thing that we can do with Business Central in these GL accounts is to review them. There's a function called review that allows us to kind of do like a very brief reconciliation of our expense accounts. And it's not taking the balance and trying to reconcile to any sort of statement or anything, but it's allowing us to actually mark those transactions as being reviewed by somebody. Again, if I have an account that I'm responsible for the budget, I want to go through that account month after month and just confirm that everything that's in that account should be there, and I can tag that it's been checked. By doing that, I can go into my account and we're going to go to the ledger entries. Now I'm in the ledger entries. These are all the entries that have hit this account over time. And from here, I can actually initiate that review process. If I say review entries, I can come in here and you'll notice I've got some that have already been reviewed. I'll go ahead and expand this out. So I can actually review entries, and maybe I'm going through and I've got a certain date that I need to review. Maybe I want to review the January, this period. I got to look at these entries. I'm going to say filter to this value. The filtering and sorting of the grids in Business Central is very powerful. Let's say I've looked at all these entries and I want to mark them as all being reviewed. I've just selected all of these entries, and now I can say set selected as reviewed right here. And that's going to put my name and the date and time that I've actually reviewed them. Now I'm done with those entries. I don't need to see them again. We've got a couple different options up here. I can hide the reviewed entries. I say hide those. Now I'm only looking at the stuff that has not been reviewed yet. This is just a tool that Business Central has given us to kind of mark transactions as, yes, these have been looked at by somebody and they are correct. It's a great application for that scenario, for these bank or non-balancing type of reconciliations. That's a pretty cool feature there. We talked about dimensions. A lot of times what comes out of that is, well, knowing that I can put dimensions on a certain transaction, what if I'm using this office supplies account and I've got a budget I always want to force that somebody puts a department dimension. I don't want somebody booking an entry to office supplies without populating that dimension value. We can do that on the account card. We can define what dimensions are mandatory. And in this case, what I've done is I said, yes, on office supplies, department is mandatory. And I've set valid departments. Not every department can book to this. For example, my new department, they are not supposed to book to this. When I'm doing an entry, it's going to look at this and say, yep, you've selected a department. Now, is it one of those that's allowed to be selected? We have a really good process here that will enforce some business rules that will try to keep things in line for you. If I try to post an entry to office supplies and hit the Western region as the department, it would not allow me to post it. It would give me a message that says that's not an allowed department for this GL account. Go ahead and select something else. It does prevent us from selecting departments that may not apply to a specific GL account. We have that ability here as well. Pretty cool. Right. Let's talk journal entries. This is where we can actually see some of the functionality of the dimensions, how they work, and I'll show you some integration pieces with how Business Central uses Excel as a great tool. Just very quick entry, notice on the right side here, I've got my journal check. So this is kind of looking at something as I'm doing an entry and telling me if I have to correct something. And I'll show you how that functions here in a minute. I'm just going to put a new document number on here and my GL account. Again, I'm going to office supplies. Notice as I type the name of that account, it will pull it in and give me that information. Now I'm going to put my office supplies amount on here. Notice it's giving me feedback already. It says select a dimension value for this, and I'm out of balance by $500. I got two issues going on, and I can see that now I'm out of balance. But what's cool about Business Central, I can do a single line entry. This is the balancing account, meaning all I got to do is select the other account. I'm just going to put this to travel expense. Now I've got a balanced entry. This entry, just to kind of walk you through that, I'm hitting or debiting office supplies and crediting my travel expense. That's what that account is, with a single row entry. It's actually a neat feature, kind of new for most people, because I know it was new to me when I started using Business Central. But now I find I use that a lot when I'm loading data in for an implementation stuff. Now, if I didn't want to put that on there, maybe I needed to split between two different departments, I can simply come down here, put my travel expense, just like it would be here, and then I can do the minus $500, and then I can set my department values. Maybe I'm going for marketing there and legal there. Now I've got my account. That would be kind of that same entry, but moving between our department dimensions. And if I wanted to apply this to a grant, I could select the grant for this particular transaction as well and have that in there too. That's how we can select those dimensions. Makes it very easy to create those entries. And another nice feature that Business Central has is a preview post. I want to make sure this is going to go through. It gives me that last double check before I actually commit it to the ledger to take a look at the entry. If I open this up, I can confirm my posting date looks correct. I confirm that I'm hitting the right GL accounts. There's my office supplies. There's my travel expense. All of that information is being presented to me right there. I can see I'm hitting the proper dimension values. Again, this gives me that look prior to actually hitting the commit to the ledger. And now I can go ahead and post that. And it's super easy to do that. There we go. Now we've got a posted entry. Very straightforward way of transacting. Once again, we have the ability to move things around on the screen using that personalized mode that I mentioned earlier. By using personalized, you can put these fields in different order if you want. Maybe grants come before department, on and forth. But by using the journal entry, we can create templates. And most of our customers, they have a payroll system. they get an entry from that payroll system, and they need to bring that in as a journal entry into Business Central. I've got a journal out here. It's basically the same layout, but what I'm doing here is I'm going to import a spreadsheet or import a transaction from a spreadsheet. I'll go ahead and open up my payroll import that I got from my payroll companies. I'm launching that. Here is the entry that I've received from my payroll company, and you'll notice I created this template from my screen. If you notice, these column headings are in the same exact order. And the way that I did that, I'll just briefly show you this. I'm going to slide this off to the side here. The way that we can create a template is just, I'm clicking in this blank area, and I'm going to do on my keyboard, Control-C. You'll notice it says copied one row. I bring over a blank spreadsheet, and I'm just going to open up a new one here. I must have done this a few times. And I'm just going to do a Control-V, paste it in there. That is how we create templates in Business Central or in Excel for Business Central. It's giving me all the header. Now all I need to do is copy or grab the account numbers and all that stuff. And that's what I've done here in my journal entry. This is the export from my payroll company. All I need to do is highlight that information. I get all my different GL accounts. I'm going to Control-C, and I'm going to slide that out of the way. And we're going to come in here and paste that by just Control-V. There is my entry. Now, this is a fairly short one. I've had customers that have, 1,500 rows of payroll just because it's all broken out by different departments, and the dimensions can be brought in via that same method. This is one way of getting that information from Excel into Business Central very rapidly. And quite honestly, we do this a lot during implementation. We bring in trial balance summaries this way as well, using that copy paste function. It's super efficient way to do it rather than doing some sort of template and you trying to do an import and all that stuff. It's just a great way to do it. Very efficient in this regard. All right, payroll. Oh, and this is my payroll entry. One thing I can do is attach that spreadsheet. Maybe I want that as my backup or my support of this. I can go to this little fact box, and that's just turning that on and off over here. And you'll notice I have incoming documents. I can attach a file. So I'm going to grab that same file that I have over here. Hold on. Do a drag and drop into that on my desktop, my demo files. Here's my payroll entry. I'm just going to drag and drop that right there. And now I have that to live with that journal entry. When it gets posted, I will have that information. And we can put any document as an attachment, whether it's a spreadsheet, an image, whatever you have, a PDF, any of those documents can be an attachment. And there you can have a number or any number of attachments. There's no limit on your entries. And that's throughout the system. Purchase invoices, we can do attachments, all that type of stuff. Now, I might be working on an entry. I'm not sure if you guys use Teams or not yet, but I have the ability here to share this with somebody. If I wanted to share this out to Teams, maybe I've got a question on this journal or I want somebody to just kind of put some eyes on it before I post it. I could actually click this and say, all right, share this out to somebody in Teams. And when I do that, they're going to just get a link right back to this exact journal entry. They don't have to go back and search for it or anything like that. This is a link right to this journal entry. I can share it with one of my team members. Here's Kevin. Now he's got that out there. He's going to get this little link. He can click on that and he will be brought right to this screen and he can evaluate it and then get back to me whether everything looks good or not. So you can share that with Teams. I can open this in Excel. If I got a journal entry, again, showing that tight integration with the Office tools. We're going to open that in Excel here a moment and notice it's using my cloud-based Excel, but here's the journal entry. So if I wanted to do some further analysis with this, maybe it was that 1,500 row entry and I just wanted to maybe filter it by dimension or filter it by department and do some double checking on it. I can do that right from here. Again, I didn't have to do a copy or paste or anything like that. It just put it out to Excel and automatically put those filtering rules into the spreadsheet for me, which is pretty cool. All right, let's go to recurring journal entries. A lot of times there's opportunity to create entries that recur every month, like our rent and things like that, or accruals. We use recurring journal entries for that in Business Central, recurring general journals. And here we are. And I've got one here for utilities. I'll just walk through this briefly and we can see how this one shakes out. This is my utilities. And what I'm doing here is I'm actually allocating utilities by department. What I've done here is we said it's a variable amount because I don't know what that bill is until it comes, because our electric usage or whatever varies every month. It's a variable, meaning when I post it, the amount's going to go back down to 0, and then we'll just re-enter the new amount when consumers sends us the invoice. Every month it's going to post on the last day of the month. And we've got our document number in here. It's just November utilities. This is going to create a transaction on my vendor. It will create an invoice or actually a ledger entry that I can pay. This is just recording that expense. And here's the amount. And then notice it has an allocated amount here. When I drill into that, you can see here's where we're actually doing that allocation. I'm saying corporate, marketing, and legal are all getting a percentage of this, and that percentage is based on some probably head count in this case. Now we could use square footage. You could actually just give it a percentage. It'll calculate the balance or the amounts based on whatever we put here. As long as it allocates up to 100%, it will calculate it up correctly. So this is how we can allocate that. Now I can allocate it to different GL accounts as well. Maybe I'm going, my payroll expense needs to get allocated out. I could do that, those types of things. That's really what this utility or this function is used for. I think I've got another one in here for rent. On the rent, we have an expiration date. Maybe we've negotiated a contract for the year, and at 12/31, it expires. The last run of that entry will just make it go away. And this is a fixed amount. This one is set to a fixed value, meaning every amount or every time I run this, it's going to be the same amount. And here again, I'm allocating that rent expense out to different departments based on some sort of factor, whether that's square footage or whatever it might be. And accruals, I think I've got an accrual in here. The accruals are a reversing entry. These would get posted, would be posted on the last day of the month and then reversed on the first day of the month. That's what the accrual entry does. We do our normal accruals, posted on the last day of the month, and then the first day of the next month, it will reverse that. And it actually posts those two entries at the same time. It just puts the proper posting date on the first for those. That's how we can do accruals for those types of entries. All right, let's take a look at financial reports. Under finance, Business Central has what we call financial reporting. And if you're using tools like Management Reporter today, this would be Management Reporter Light or lighter, even lighter than light. But it does give you very basic financials like balance sheet, income statement. I've got a report in here. I'll go ahead and jump to it. Called my grant balance or my grant tracking. I've got some grants out there that we need to track the expenses and things against for reporting. We can do that with our grant balance. I'll just pull up this grant balance report. We'll kind of walk through this a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and shrink up the option so you can actually see what's down here. You can see, and this is spanning a very large time, but we won the grant on January. We made an entry for the grant. Now, this is a non-financial entry because they didn't just send us a check for the grant, right? We never get the check. We get the ability to spend money towards a grant, and then maybe we get reimbursed as we go. What we can see here is we can put that initial amount in a statistical account, and that's what this entry would be. And then we can report against it in our financials. These are the actuals that are coming through. And what's nice about this is I can actually see the burn rate of these grants as they're going through. And by using the dimensions, this is multiple grants in the 600,000, but maybe I want to filter it down to just one grant. Here's my grant filter, and I can filter it down to just the Van Andel grant. That one's 100,000, and I can see that we started actually incurring some expenses in February, and those expenses start picking up as we go. And then by the end of December, we're down to 73, or we've got 73,000 available on that grant. Using those dimension filters, I can really kind of slice and dice that data and look at pieces of the information as I go, or I can combine pieces of that information. This is really a kind of a grant tracking financial report. We can do the same thing with balance sheet, income statement, basically comparative. It's using the same type of row and column layouts that we do. I can do multiple column layouts based on the information that I want to see. As an example, I've got my grant and my budget. Here's a column for actuals, and I've got a budget for month over month, and I can compare that against my actuals. I could put another column in between those that says, here's the difference for April, here's the difference for March, and one. Just makes it a really long report, but that is the capabilities within the reporting here on the financial reports. And you can configure those however you want. A lot of questions come up where, hey, I want to run that balance sheet. Just run me a balance sheet. It's like, well, we got to actually build that. It doesn't come, there's no out of the box financial reports that you can immediately just run because it's specific to your chart of accounts and the layout that you want to put in there. But you can see what's nice, and I'll go to our balance sheet. I think I got that one here. You can see that I pulled this directly from the chart of accounts. I think this is the one, but having those heading accounts in here makes building a financial statement very quick because I can import all of the accounts directly from the chart of accounts. By using those heading accounts in my chart of accounts, it makes that creation of a financial statement with the headings in there very quick. I can just import it, and now I'm ready to go. That makes our financial reports development go very quickly if we spend the time to make our chart of accounts lay out like that. With that, I'll talk about where we're heading next. So we're going to jump into accounts payable. We'll show some accounts payable functionality. We'll look at bank rec, and I'll go through the payables process, selecting documents for payment, going through the check printing, and we'll look at an approval process. That's kind of what will wrap us up here. And if we have time, I'll take a look at a bank rec in the end, but we're going to jump into purchasing right now and look at our vendor accounts. Let's do that. Under vendors, we have our vendor list. And again, with any list in Business Central, you can do all sorts of filtering and things like that. Maybe I want to sort these by their balance. I can simply go descending, show me the biggest stuff at the top. Here's my aging. Anything with a balance is going to be on my aging, even the minus stuff, right? I can look at vendor balances quickly, easily. I can filter, do all sorts of stuff. If I want to take this out to Excel, I can open this out to Excel and do some things there. One nice thing is I can edit in Excel. So maybe I got to change all of my vendors' payment terms all at one time. Maybe we're doing net 30 across the board. I can actually do an edit in Excel on my entire vendor list and do that one quick change and publish that change up to all of my vendors. I can do my entire vendor list at one time. And I'm just going to copy what is this? We're copying this one. Yeah, okay. So it's opening up in Excel. There it is. Notice what it's doing over here. It's actually kind of logging in my account, validating that I'm a valid user of this environment. And notice now it's retrieving the data. This is going to be my entire vendor table, and it's open for me to make changes to it. Like I mentioned, if I wanted to change our terms or something, I could do that across the board. And I'm going to try to find something I can change here. I'm going to actually change the location. I'm going to do location, which is over here, that you can see it get changed. I think I've got a main location, and I'm just going to drop that all the way down. I copy that, boom. I've made the change, and this would be hundreds of vendors, sometimes thousands. And now I'm just going to publish this, and it's going to go ahead looking at everything. and it says, hey, that's been successfully updated. I'm going to close this Excel spreadsheet. Notice this location now. I've updated it to Maine. I'm going to hit F5 on my keyboard to refresh my screen. And boom, now they're all at Maine. Thinking of mass data updates, this puts that ability right in the user's hands to make those big changes across the board. Now that is a permissionable thing, because a lot of people go, oh my gosh, I don't want, to ever have that kind of ability. We can take that away with permission. It is something that is a permissionable thing that we can do, but it is very powerful. And we use that all the time during implementations because we're moving lots of data and just getting everything situated. Very powerful tool. You can go ahead and make those changes across the board. All right, vendors. Now let's take a look at purchasing. I'm going to do a purchase invoice or talk about purchase invoices. I am going to do a new one because I want to show you a process here. I have a workflow built in, meaning an approval process that when I create a purchase order, it needs to go to an approver before it can actually get posted. Somebody's going to take a look at it, make sure everything looks good. I'm just going to go ahead and create a new one very quickly here. We'll grab a vendor. I'm going to put their invoice number in here. And I'm going to charge my favorite office supplies expense. Typing that in there. I'm going to give it a department code. I'm going to call it marketing. I give it an amount. I'm going to say $500. Boom. I'll make it unique, 510, just to kind of call it out a little bit. All right, now I've got that information in there. Let me move up. Notice I've got this document check on here too. Right now it says everything is all good. Once again, if I wanted to attach the backup, maybe I got the invoice, I could simply do that attachment. I can pull that in and attach that file. If I wanted to do that, that would be here. And that lives with that document forever. We have the ability to put some notes in here. This is my new note. And what's nice about that, I can have a brief conversation. Notice it tags it with my user ID and the date that I made that note. I could go back and forth, and add notes into this document as well. If I go to the details tab, notice on the details tab, if I scroll down, it gives me a summary of the vendor's information. Here's the outstanding orders. Here's payments that have been received down here. When was the last payment date that we made to this vendor is on the 10th of November. So it gives me a good amount of information. Again, always feeding that information to you as you're going through. So that's all related to the vendor. All right, so now I've got my document and I'm going to go ahead and post this. No, I'm not, right? Because there's an approval process. It's telling me right here, this must be approved and released before you can perform this action. All right, so now I have to submit it for approval. So I'm going to go ahead and request approval and send the approval request. And there it is. It says it's been sent, and notice the status has been updated to pending approval. Now, that went to somebody. Let's see who that went to. Within the document, I can look at approvals. All right, I submitted the approval. The sender was me, Brian L., and it's sitting in my admin's approver basket, right? They've got it now in their inbox, and they would get an email. And I'm going to bail out of this document here a minute, go back to my home screen and show you. Now I've got 2 requests that I've sent out there that I'm waiting for somebody to approve. All right, here's my request, and this is the one that I just created. Notice it gives me the vendor, the dollar amount of my invoice, and who it went to, right? And I think there's some dates over here when I submitted it for approval and all that stuff. Now, I just realized that my admin guy is out on vacation. I want to delegate this to his substitute approver. I'm going to do that right here. I'm going to delegate it. And now it says that the request has been delegated. Perfect. Well, I'm his substitute approver. Isn't that great? Now I have a new request to approve. It's sitting in my approval. I would have received an email that gives me both indications, and I can simply click on that tile. Here's the document. I can open up the invoice right from here. I can review it. I can review notes. I can look at the attachment, anything about it. I have the ability to look at We can see all that information here. And if everything looks good, right from within the document, I can approve it and post it. Maybe I don't want it to go back and forth. Maybe if I looked at it and it all looks good, I just want to get it posted so that we're not waiting to send it back to that original person. I can say approve here. Yep, that's all done now. Notice it's released. I can post it. Now it's completely done. And there it goes. Now it's been posted and I don't need to look at the posted purchase invoice, but that's been done. And we can incorporate that in journal entries, purchase invoices, all those types of areas. We can use a great feature in there. All right, let's take a look at our payments. So now it's the end of it's Thursday, right? We do our check run. We're going to do a payment journal here. And I'm just going to go into my payments batch and run through a very quick scenario of processing a payment check run. In my payments journal, I'm going to simply select prepare and suggest vendor payments. And what this is going to do is go out and look at all of those vendor payments that are available for me to select. And how am I going to pay them? I'm going to pay them from my bank account, which is the checking account, and I'm going to print a computer check. Now we have the ability to do ACH payments or electronic payments. Basically, it creates a file for ACH that we can, or a standard Nacha file that we can upload to your bank and then pay them that way. In this scenario, I'm going to run through the checks. So I'm just going to simply say, okay. And that looks good. So it ran through all of my open invoices and here they are. Notice my vendor, here's their reference number, the dollar amounts, and these are the invoices that it's applying to. It's going to apply against those invoices and we're going to pay by computer check. Now, if everything looks great, I would just go ahead and print checks, but I could certainly delete some payments out of here. Maybe I don't want to pay the Visa Corp just yet. I can select those and say, you know, those got to go. I'm going to get rid of those. I'm going to delete that vendor out of here. And that's all I need to do there. I can overwrite the amount. Maybe I don't want to pay $2,000 on this invoice. I'm going to pay them $1,500 today and leave a balance on that particular invoice. So I can simply do that. And then from here, I'm going to go ahead and just print checks. And now it brings up just kind of confirming the account that I'm paying from, the last check number. I'll go ahead and hit print. And you'll notice it brings it up into a window where I can actually review them and then print them off to my printer. Now, in this case, I have an application that has auto signature on here with some thresholds. Any invoice that's over, I think it's 5,000, I need 2 signatures. There's one down here, I think. Yeah, here's one that's only 1,300, but only has a single signature on there. But we include, or we actually ask people to use blank check stock because we print everything on the check itself. You don't need to have all the boxes and stuff for us to try to align to. Blank check stock is the most beneficial way to go there. It's easiest to set up, and then you don't have to worry about having checks laying around because they're all blank. This gives us the ability to print everything on the check, the MICR line, the whole thing. I'm going to go ahead and void all those checks because I don't want to use, this is my demo environment. I don't want to have to rekey those. So I'm going to void those as if they weren't ever printed. But when I do print those or post that batch, now I can start right over. I can select all these guys and delete them right out of my batch. Maybe I selected the wrong stuff and I can start right over. It's very easy to make adjustments. As long as you haven't posted yet, you can do pretty much anything you want in the payment journal before you actually post those through. All right, I'm going to go ahead and move over into our, let's see, we did payment journal signatures, approvals. That's all good. We got 10 minutes left. Let's briefly take a look at our bank rec process. I'm going to go to my cash management here, and I'm going to look at my bank account reconciliation. And I've already kind of initiated one, but I'll talk through how we can create these. You'll notice there's 2 window panes here. The one on the right is basically all the entries that are in Business Central associated with this bank account for the date range that I have cut off, right? This is through 12/31/2023. It's showing me all the entries here. Now, this side is what came in from the bank statement. We have the ability to import from a bank statement using a CSV file. You can link your bank account if it's able to, and have that feed directly into the bank reconciliation. So a couple options there. Once you get everything brought in here, it's a very quick exercise. I can go in and say matching, and I can say match automatically. And it's going to give me a window that says, hey, give me a tolerance on these days that you might want. And I'm just going to put a 1-day tolerance in here and see what that gives me. It's running through and it says, hey, we've matched up 55 of your 57 entries. And that's pretty good. That means it found most of my stuff. Now I'm going to scroll through this list and find out what didn't come over. We've got some bank fees that did not get entered into the system. Well, that's normal because until we get our statement, we usually don't know about those bank fees. What I'm going to do is create a journal entry that will put these into our statement or into our entries right from the reconciliation. So I'm going to say select more. I'm going to grab these guys and we're going to process them and transfer them to a general journal. So I'm taking those 2 entries and I'm moving them into my default general journal. And I'm going to say, okay. And here we are. I've got my 2 entries. There they are. This one must have been residual from something else. I'm going to delete that guy out of there. But here they are. And all I have to do is give it a doc number. I'm just going to say bank fee. And F8 that. And I'm just going to put them to my bank fee account. There's my bank charges and fees, and I'm going to hit F8 to copy that down. That's all I got to do. Now I'm going to preview post this just to make sure I've got a good entry. That all looks great. It's posting those transactions and making my bank transaction. When I post this, boom, that posted. Now I'm going to go back to my bank rec and notice they're matched up, because those entries now exist somewhere in here. Yeah, there they are. They've matched those 2 up, and that's how simple bank rec is in Business Central. Basically import that statement, it matches up the documents that we have using the auto match, and then anything left behind we account for by using a journal entry. And then anything on the right side is obviously open transactions that have yet not cleared the bank. A very straightforward process to get through the bank reconciliation. Or I'm going to turn it over to Christopher and have him wrap it up.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. So hopefully that was a good overview. And as you have time to decompress and think about it, let us know if there's other things that you have questions on or would like more information on.